right here. And
Thank you, Amanda. We'll now have the roll call.
Commissioners Michelle Bowers, Catherine Carlson,
Present.
Amanda Haas,
Here.
Andrew Mercy,
Present.
Timothy Wiley,
Present.
Vice Chairman Russell Bartlett,
Present.
Chairperson April Bartlett, absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Public business from the floor. If an individual is unable to stay through the entire meeting due to extenuating circumstances, a total of 10 minutes is provided at this time, during which input may be given regarding agenda items. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Any person who would like to address the Architectural and Design Commission on any agendized item is requested to complete a speaker card for the recording secretary and identify the agenda item you would like to discuss. Each person will be given an opportunity to address the Architectural and Design Commission at the time such item is discussed by the Architectural and Design Commission. Speaker cards available at the entrance of council chambers. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each.
We don't have any speaker cards.
Thank you. Consent of calendar. Moved for approval of minutes from regular meeting of February 7th, 2013.
Move approval of consent calendar. Second.
Thank you. We have, looks like 3 presentations this evening. Oh, we do. I thought Timothy's second held so much weight.
It did. It's not this week.
Okay. So move to vote for approval of minutes. Are we using the vote buttons tonight or just by
We
hand?
vote by hand.
By hands.
All in favor?
All in favor?
You see the count? Six zero.
Thank you.
So, Commission, we do have 3 informational presentations before you today. These are presentations that we would like to invite and welcome your input and opinion on. But first of all, actually, we would like to welcome Dr. Michelle Bowers to the ADC. Welcome, and we will excuse Chair Bartlett and Planning Director Brian Luedeke. The first of the 3 presentations that we have is the Downtown Lancaster Gateway Improvement. Our presenters are Marissa Diaz and Ray Hunt from our Capital Engineering Division, and we'll turn the time over to them.
That's this one. Okay. Good evening. My name, as Chen mentioned, is Marisa Diaz. I'm a senior civil engineer with the Public Works Capital Engineering Division, and I'm here to talk about the Downtown Lancaster Gateway improvements. In 2009, the city submitted the Downtown Lancaster Gateway and Roundabout project to Metro for consideration of grant funding. The scope was to create a gateway entrance to downtown Lancaster. It included roundabout and enhancements, landscaping, gateway monument, plaza, and decorative paving. In 2010, we were successful in obtaining programming for nearly $900,000 in federal transportation enhancement funds. In 2012, City Council directed staff to rescope the project and eliminate the roundabout. To preserve our intent to calm traffic through the intersection, we chose to replace the roundabout with curb extensions, and the rest of the scope remains the same. In 2013, the California Transportation Commission accepted our revised scope and allocated about $727,000 in transportation enhancement funds for construction of the rescoped project, now known as the Downtown Lancaster Gateway Project. Currently, we are in the final stages of design, and we anticipate Caltrans construction authorization and advertisement in July 2013. However, because the city manager wants to avoid some of the summer events and the holidays, we're actually postponing start of construction until January 2014. The drawing before you illustrates our proposed improvements of the intersection of Lancaster Boulevard and 10th West, including curb extensions, decorative paving, landscaping, planters, street trees, and an enhanced landscape area here where the flower shop used to be. We'll also be rehabilitating the pavement and restriping on Lancaster Boulevard, 10th Street West, and Lancaster Way. And also on Lancaster Way, we'll be undergrounding power poles and overhead lines, and we'll be installing 3 new streetlights. In developing our design approach, Capital Engineering reviewed the downtown-specific plan. We looked at the existing boulevard as-built plans. We toured the boulevard, and we met with city administration, executive staff, planning, traffic, and maintenance staff, the owners of the AMPM at the southeast corner, and the owner of the accounting office at the northeast corner. And it was agreed that we would extend, match, mimic, and complement existing decorative elements, materials, and themes approved and already in place on the boulevard. We'd also reinforce the boulevard branding, and we'd reiterate the concept and theme of the boulevard as a destination for the senses. In terms of hardscape and amenities, the concrete pavers, flagstone accent paving, streetlights, and street furniture will all be exactly the same as what we already have on the boulevard. For the bus stop, the new shelter and bench will be similar in color to the existing street furniture, and the trash receptacles will be exactly the same. The remaining amenities listed on this side of the slide will repeat the existing hardscape materials horizontally and vertically. For plant materials, the Chinese pistache trees, London plane trees, rosemary shrubs, yucca shrubs, and sage shrubs are all exactly the same as what we already have on the boulevard. We'll be placing sycamore trees at the northeast corner and southeast corner to kind of define the gateway. And then the remaining plant material on the list were selected to complement the existing plant material. To incorporate elements that reinforce the boulevard branding, we'll install a monument sign that's 5 feet wide and 2 feet tall, and it'll be in a raised landscape planter. There'll be one at Lancaster Boulevard east of 10th Street West, and there'll be one on Lancaster Boulevard west of Beach Avenue. There'll be custom pavers with the boulevard logo placed randomly in the sidewalk to match existing. The B logo that's embossed at the bottom of the streetlights will be on the new streetlights, and then we're creating custom skate deterrents with the B logo on them that'll be placed on all of the planter walls. At this time, I'd like to briefly look at each area of the gateway individually to highlight some of the details of the proposed improvements. On the boulevard approach, as mentioned, the gateway monument sign will be placed in raised planters, and the first location is here on Lancaster Boulevard, behind the median east of 10th Street West, and the other one is going to be on Beach Avenue, just east of that, in the Rhombus area. The planter walls on the 10th West end will be circular and 2 foot high, and the planter on Beach Avenue will be 4 feet high and rectangular in shape. The facing will match the concrete pavers, and it'll be capped to match the sign, and there'll be skate deterrents placed on each, and each sign will be externally uplit. The material and color of the monument signs were inspired by the Beck sign, which is made out of steel plates with a rubbed finish. The landscape median, just east of 10th Street West, is very similar to the median that's on the Sierra Highway end of the boulevard, in that it'll be landscaped and include concrete pavers to match the sidewalk, but this one will be raised to prevent left turns and through movements from driveways, and it'll be curved so that you'll get better visibility of the boulevard monument sign. At the northwest corner, which is fronting Avens, the curb line from the corner all the way up to the alley is actually being pushed into the travel way, and we're widening the sidewalk to 20 feet. We'll have decorative paving on the sidewalks at the corner and the crosswalks. We'll be placing new street trees to match the existing street trees, and we'll be installing a raised median that will be covered in the pavers that match the sidewalk. At the northeast corner, fronting Accurate Bookkeeping, we'll have more of a traditional curb extension that pushes the corner out into 10th Street West. We'll have decorative paving on the sidewalks, corner, and on the crosswalks. And here, the existing landscape planter will be modified. We're going to extend the wall, and then we'll be refacing it to match all the other planter walls. The plant material in the planter will be similar to what we have at the southeast corner and also in the enhanced landscape area at the southwest corner. And the landscaping within this area will be uplit. The current bus stop located here outside of Accurate Bookkeeping will be moved to the north. And it'll include a new shelter, a new bench, and then trash can. At the southeast corner, fronting A&PM, we have a very minor curb realignment. There'll be decorative paving on the sidewalks, the corner, and the crosswalks. And in this raised landscape planter, we have the A&PM sign. We have 2 parking lot lights that will be relocated and replaced with lights that look like the street lights on the boulevard. The planter walls will be faced to match the other planter walls. Plant material will match the northeast corner and the southwest corner, and the landscaping within that planter will be uplit as well. At the southwest corner, where the flower shop used to be located, there'll be no curb realignment. There'll be decorative paving in the sidewalks, the corner, and the crosswalks. There'll be a small plaza area, and that plaza will include accent stone that matches the corner. There's a raised planter here with 3 flagpoles, and the planter walls will be faced to match all the other planter walls, and the flagpoles will be uplit. There'll be benches, chairs, and trash receptacles in the plaza, and those will match the existing street furniture. And then we'll also be installing some bike racks that complement the street furniture. Within the center portion here, there'll be a trellis, and the columns will be faced to match the planter walls, and they'll have light fixtures to provide lighting. Plant material within the enhanced landscape area will match the northeast corner and southeast corner, and a few more for the census. The street trees on Lancaster Boulevard will match what's going in at the northeast corner. And as mentioned before, we have overhead lines and poles here that will be undergrounded and 3 new street lights. For traffic calming and improved safety at the intersection, the traffic improvements include curb extensions, raised median islands, more curb ramps, upgraded traffic signals, pavement markings and striping, detectable warning panels on our curb ramps, closed driveways, and a modified alley approach. The benefits of these traffic improvements include reducing the number of travel lanes, widening bike paths, making curb ramps ADA compliant, reducing speeds through the intersection by approximately 5 miles per hour, decreasing pedestrian crossing distances by 12 to 22%, and eliminating all left turns and through movements from driveways on Lancaster Boulevard along the proposed raised medians. This concludes my presentation on the Downtown Lancaster Gateway project, and I would be happy to answer any questions that the Commission may have. Yes.
The roundabout, what was the, switch out there? I mean,
Well, a big part of it was the cost, because for the proposed geometry that we had, we were very limited because of the right-of-way, and we were going to have to reconstruct the whole entire intersection, which we didn't initially anticipate, so it drove up the cost pretty significantly.
oh, okay.
All right, I have a few questions. Great presentation. Thank you so much. My first question is, did we talk to Avens and the office building across the street regarding this project? Was there any conversation with them
I believe
on that north side of the street, I guess it would be?
Yeah, at the northeast corner, we did talk to Accurate Bookkeeping, and Ms. Clark is very supportive of the project and has been really good to work with. For the Avens project, I personally didn't have very much contact with them, but I believe the redevelopment the redevelopment agency had initial contact with them when the project first started, and it was agreed that we wouldn't be doing very much on that corner, and we wouldn't be getting additional right-of-way or.
Okay. And right now, in front of those two in front of the office building, I believe, and then Avens is sort of right behind it. There's asphalt that goes from the curb to the right up to that building. Is there any opportunity to affect some change there to maybe improve the aesthetic of that asphalt portion?
Well, what we propose to do is put street trees to divide that line up.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
Right
I do.
there, okay.
Yeah, and it is actually a very, it's very hard. And so we tried
Yeah.
to soften it up with street trees that matched. And the reason why we selected street trees instead of maybe like a strip of parkway
Sure.
is because we already have street trees on to the west, and we also have street trees on the boulevard to the east.
That's great. It wasn't clear to me whether or not that asphalt could potentially go away, because it is really,
Well, we're taking away the portion that's within our right-of-way, but
Okay.
we're not doing anything on Avens' portion.
okay. And there's no opportunity for conversation or
Well, it's not too late to still modify it and maybe put a parkway strip of landscaping to soften it even more. It's just that we'll lose the continuity between east and west for the boulevard.
Oh, no, I don't, I'm just, that asphalt is gross.
Yeah.
So it would be nice if it had a nicer appearance. As far as this, where you have that triangular piece of property where the flower shop used to be, is there, one of the problems that we sometimes have on the boulevard is people using the outlets, and so I just wanted to make sure, or comment to make sure that we don't have accessible turned-on outlets for the public at large to utilize to plug in. It creates a sort of transient environment sometimes where people sort of camp out for the day with their cell phone or whatever plugged in, and I think that we want to avoid that in that area.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that outlets are available so that we are able to do the same sort of lighting and everything that we do during Christmas and continue the look throughout the boulevard for what we do for the holidays and different events, but also make sure that we don't have accessibility to the public at large to plug in, to basically use the city's power to charge their phones and things.
Right. And we actually aren't providing any outlets on this, since it's not on the boulevard that's on the main portion of the boulevard. We didn't include any outlets on the street lights or anywhere else like we did previously.
You don't think that'll be an issue?
No.
Okay.
Because any decorative lighting or,
It'll be permanent, nothing that we take up and down. Like we do, whatever decorative lighting will be permanent. You don't intend to do Christmas lights or anything else
Right.
there. Great.
right.
And then I had one more, I'm sorry. Will there be speakers over there like we have on the rest of the boulevard?
No, we're keeping that on the main portion of the boulevard as well.
Okay. And then, in my experience, sometimes low foot traffic areas do also create more of like a situation where people sort of loiter versus utilize the space, utilize the benches and things as sort of passing through. And then I would just want to make sure that, there was, some consideration taken to make sure that we don't have some of the loitering and things happening in this particular triangle of space, because there are really no businesses around it that have regular foot traffic, and that the businesses that don't have consistent foot traffic on the boulevard are the ones that end up with essentially people like laying out blankets and plugging in their cell phones and sitting with their dogs and stuff like that, like all day long. And I don't want it to become that type of situation.
We'll take that into consideration.
Whether that's extra patrol or whatever the case may be. It's just something that does happen in other areas. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Katie, you have any questions? No?
Just if you could clarify for me, you had touched on it in your presentation. It addresses widening of the bike paths and reduction of the speed through intersections by approximately 5 miles per hour. So I was just wondering if you could clarify a little bit for me, because I'm not recalling where the bike paths are that you're talking about. Widening or? It's on page 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get that. Let me actually go through this one. You can see we have bike lane striping here, and we have bike lane striping there. And I believe that it's going to be a full 5 feet on each of those two sides.
Okay. And that's what street? That's Lancaster?
That's Lancaster Boulevard, sorry.
I don't have my glasses on. I'll bring them next time. Thank you very much. And then the intersections that you're talking about, you were talking about reducing the speed limit from 15 to 5, or?
Well, we're not reducing the speed limit, we're just reducing the speed of the traffic.
The traffic,
Yeah, they
okay.
should slow down because of the bulb outs, or the
Right.
printer extension.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
One last question. What's the proposed timeframe for construction?
Typically, our projects run about 3 months, so for this particular project with adverse weather days, it's going to be 118 contract days.
Okay. And are we anticipating that to be during the day? Is there going to be impact to current flow of traffic? Or has that been minimized or addressed through non-peak hours of construction or evening or night work or?
Well, at this time, we're not restricting outside of our regular working hours, so it'll mostly be day work. There will be traffic control involved, but they won't have to shut down the entire intersection.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Ms. Diaz.
Okay, I think we'll move on to our next presentation by Luis Garibay. It's the City Wayfinding Program.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. As Chen mentioned, my name is Luis Garibay. I'm Senior Project Coordinator here at the City of Lancaster. And we'll be talking about the city's new proposed wayfinding program. F5. There we go. It may be difficult to believe, but each year more than 200,000 people visit Lancaster from out of the area. Now, whether it's for a big sports tournament at the Lancaster National Soccer Center or the Big 8 softball complex, maybe they're here for a special event downtown at the LPAC, or even if they're here to see the beautiful poppies, which unfortunately this year we're not getting quite as much of. But people tend to flock here on a regular basis, tons of people. However, one of the biggest challenges that our visitors face is being able to navigate and experience our city without disruption. After the game or after they've taken in their show, we want to make it easier for visitors to shop, dine, and support our local businesses here in Lancaster. Now, one of the ways we plan on doing this is by implementing this new comprehensive wayfinding program. Now, wayfinding is obviously not a new concept. I mean, for those of us who have traveled, have gone somewhere, we've often seen signs that help direct us to a downtown, a historical point of interest, or even a stadium. And fortunately, signage isn't a new trend here in the city of Lancaster either. However, there hasn't been much thought put into the design and the placements of the signs, in which I'll use this as a perfect example. If you were from out of the area and coming to downtown to the LPAC or the MOA to come see a show, if you're using your GPS device or MapQuest or whatever it is, they'll probably send you to this intersection here, which is K and 15th Street West as you get off. Now, as you approach the intersection, you can see that this would make a perfect place to put some signage to let you know that if you want to go to downtown, that this is the way you want to go. Unfortunately, there is a sign. Unfortunately, it's right there, though, which isn't very visible. As you're approaching the intersection, it doesn't really tell you where you're going or what it is that you're going to approach as you get closer. As you get really close to the sign, it's still a little bit difficult. I can tell that I'm supposed to make a right-hand turn, but I really don't know exactly where it's sending me. It isn't until you literally get right up to the sign do you realize that the intersection you just crossed was where you're supposed to make a right to go downtown, which actually contradicts what your normal directions would tell you if you're using your GPS or MapQuest, because you can obviously, for those of us who know, can just keep taking 15th Street West down to Lancaster Boulevard. So this is obviously something that we want to address, and we hope to do so with this plan. The good thing that there is hope. We've worked with some of our top experts in wayfinding, and staff has developed a comprehensive citywide program for the city to help alleviate the program that the problem that we just talked about. Now, we sat down and have listed all the major attractions and things that would drive people here to Lancaster, and make sure that the signs that we're proposing will include some of those along the way. We essentially have 3 types of signs, which I'll explain to you now. The first one would be our freeway signage, which, as you're approaching an off-ramp along the side of the freeway, it's basically indications to let you know that something big's coming up. You should probably make your way to the right-hand lane so you can get off the freeway. The second is once you've exited the freeway, just like what we just talked about, which direction do we go? What am I looking for? What's there for me to see as I go along the way? And once you've made those turns, then essentially the local street finding, which is that level 3 there, helps you navigate you from that point to your final location, whether it be a show or the LPAC or the mower or whatever it is that you're using for it. Now, while the first phase of our project will primarily focus on the kind of the central core of the city, part of the program is actually going to be, again, like I mentioned, more of a citywide comprehensive program. Obviously, there's a lot of great attractions on the far east and west side of town that people are going to basically need to get to. Right now, we're actually in the process of developing construction plans for these various signs here, and hope that because we actually do have some funding set aside this fiscal year, can begin implementing this program within a couple of months once those plans are done and we go through the bidding process. Now, while the priority in terms of the implementation side was given to some of these key corridors that we're showing here, some of the areas that aren't going to be included in this first phase are a couple of the major freeway off-ramps. And the reason that's happening is that we're very fortunate that our Public Works Department was actually able to secure some MTA grant funding to help do some major improvements on some of the key freeway intersections in town. So working with them, we plan on implementing some of the recommendations of this program as part of those larger projects. So it didn't make sense to put in signs that may end up getting changed, or there's going to be some major reconstruction there. And we basically get to leverage our dollars that we have, the limited funding we have for this program, and are able to implement it more citywide. So that's essentially the first phase of what we're looking for and doing as part of this project. In the future, this wayfinding program is actually part of something much bigger. We're looking at full corridors and how we can change those to help improve a visitor's and actually a resident's perceptions of our city, to make it more enjoyable as they come in here, and so they have a more positive perception of the town. We've also looked at, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier too, about having and incorporating some welcome signage to the city. I was mentioning that most cities you think you'd be proud to be in your city and you'd know where you are. And unfortunately, in the city of Lancaster, there isn't a lot of that. If you're here for the first time, you could literally drive miles and miles and not know what city you're in. And we want to change that a little bit. So one of the components that we're looking at is also incorporating some welcome signage in key areas of the city as part of this bigger program. With the funding that we have available now, we figure we'll probably get about 25 signs of the different levels, again, depending on the locations, which will be a good start. It'll have an immediate impact, I think, in terms of the program. And then as we move forward, we've asked for additional funding over the next couple of years to make sure that we implement the full plan, to make sure we get we're able to implement all these different great ideas. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions regarding this program, the signage, design, and even some of the thought process that went into the development of this program.
When you get everything out to bid, what's the opportunity to make sure that every local company that could fabricate could get a chance to bid?
I know our Public Works Department does a pretty good job of keeping a list of local contractors. So as the projects come available, they're all notified if this is an area that they specialize in. I know Erica has a pretty good list in Public Works. So we'll make sure that, and I'll personally make sure that all of the local companies get an opportunity to bid on it.
Will these signs cover, how much area will they cover? Just from the freeway, or will they, like you got the, coming from Bakersfield, will there be a sign saying that, where will it be, so you can see it from both sides, I guess?
I think if, there's definitely going to be signs both ways.
Okay.
Obviously, we know that a lot of our visitors come from the eastern part of Kern County, Edwards Air Force Base, that area. A majority obviously also come up from the LA Basin. So we're definitely taking both things into consideration. We're looking at some unique opportunities to make sure that both entrances, both along the freeway, going both directions, are clearly identified so that you know that you've hit Lancaster. And I think actually we've been able to come up with some ideas that we're still trying to develop that actually are I'm pretty excited about.
A little further up, but is the musical road going to be one of the things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing how many people, I don't know if you guys watched that show Top Gear on the BBC version of it. They're actually here in Willow Springs a couple of months ago shooting, and one of the side shots that they did was actually at the musical road. The unfortunate part is that when they were there was no signage, nothing that they filmed that showed them that they were in Lancaster, so there was a big missed opportunity there for us to help brand the city at an international level.
And so, like, the bigger signs, I guess, how much, I take the big one, I guess, like number 2 or number 3,
Yeah.
You'll be able to put a number of sites on there that people could be able to go to.
In working with our planning and public works department, we really sat down to try to identify what are those key attractions that people are going to want to go to. What we did find with our research and in speaking with experts that specialize in just wayfinding, they've suggested that we limit the number of things on a sign to 4, and that's why you see usually there's only 4 things on the signs. Once you add additional things, then it becomes more cluttered. Then all of a sudden you're slowing down and causing some potential traffic issues that we want to avoid. But yeah, the idea is to get major areas. For those areas that are specific, something specific like the boulevard, we're branding as a boulevard. If it's an area of major commercial or retail kind of center, then we've kind of made it fairly generic. So people know that there's some shopping and dining opportunities this way without specifying, Rubio's and some of the specific businesses there.
Thank you.
Was there any discussion about possibly putting up signage for some of our healthcare facilities?
Actually, the K and 15th intersection there, as you go further along, one of the major signs is we're trying to brand as a medical district for the city. So yeah, that will definitely be incorporated.
And then when you guys are making decisions about the names, like you call an area, I believe it's South Commerce, is that something, my experience is that the more of us that are calling those areas by those names, and, it sort of catches on and makes it meaningful. So are those...
While those aren't finalized just yet, I know staff is working at, because again, we're going through the same issues that, internally as a city, we may call it an area something.
Right.
But a visitor, someone who's lived here for 20 years, calls it something completely different.
Right.
So it's really, we're doing a little bit of research, we're doing a little bit of homework and trying to figure out what the best way to identify an area is, and then really what that area entails. How far does, the Amargosa Creek area really include? So we're going through that now. And at the same time as these construction plans are going, so that hopefully we'll have some good recommendations. If you have any suggestions, we're more than happy to hear those.
And then when are these finalized? So when are you looking to finalize the names and what's going up on each sign?
Pretty quickly, like I mentioned, there's some money this fiscal year that we can use to help implement this program, or at least the first phase of it. We'd like to go as quickly as possible. Right now, we're kind of going, as most of these projects go, they come from kind of a conceptual process, which we started a while back, and now they're kind of getting down to details of how do we build these things. So that's what they're going into now. The things of what's exactly going to be on the sign, we have a little bit of time still. It's hard to tell just depending on terms of the exact number of months, but we do have a little bit of time.
Because I think of things like the Western Hotel that's not really in full operation right now, or Cedar Street, which is kind of coming down the pipeline, and making sure that those things that a lot of money and time are being invested in are going to have their place in the sun, be spotlighted.
And that's always posed a big challenge because,
Right.
again, once you get to downtown, there's 30 wonderful things that someone can do.
Right.
Unfortunately, it wouldn't
They
make
can't
sense
all
to
go on
have
a
all
sign.
on the same sign.
Right.
But we can have something generic that shows museums, and if someone that is interested in going to a museum wants to go, and they'll see that there'll be more than one there. Same thing with restaurants or retail or some of those things. So it's definitely a challenge, but we're trying to work through those things right now.
Mr. Vice Chair, if I can also add to what Mr. Garibay is saying, we're actually putting together, and they're actually being fabricated now, the downtown wayfinding signs, which are different. There's one that's currently posted up there at Fern and the Boulevard, and so they're now fabricating, I think it's 13 more signs, and it does include the Western Motel and LPAC, and a number of the different features in the downtown. It's a different, if you see the sign that's currently there, it's a different type of design, but it really fits the theme of the downtown. So we do intend to have, that's more of a pedestrian-oriented sign, so we have the ability to put a little bit more verbiage on there.
Right. My impression is these are sort of larger scale and to direct you to a specific area.
Exactly.
Right. And then in the long term, you may have an opportunity to do, a smaller wayfinding project just in the medical district. But I think that is such a huge opportunity for us right now. We have so many great things happening in our community in terms of building medical facilities. Unfortunately, you have the MAC Center, which is a little further, out, but everything else is fairly well clustered. So, that's a really great opportunity.
And I think Kelvin's absolutely right that the downtown model is the ideal situation where, we've looked at, actually even in the auto mall, is getting people to the auto mall. Once they're in the auto mall, then signage to make sure that they know that Toyota's here, Honda's here. And again, same thing with as we're doing downtown. Mo is this way, Western Motel, LPAC, and all those different things within that district that we're trying to create.
How many wayfinding signs are around Lancaster right now?
There's only a handful, and like I said, I took a picture of one of them. The areas that mostly have wayfinding signage are the soccer center because of the volume of people that go there now. There is a few that are existing heading to downtown. They're kind of hidden, and unless you really go out looking for them, which we actually had to go out and do, you sometimes don't see them. So I would say there's probably, less than 10 citywide in terms of city-sponsored. There are a few that are off the freeway for major things like universities. At that same intersection, there is something that points to ABC and Bakersfield. So there's those types of signs, but this is a little bit different.
So are you guys going to use, out of the 25 that you think that you'll be able to build, are you going to improve those or replace them or just leave them be?
There's a couple challenges. The stuff that's on the freeway is actually technically maintained by Caltrans. And so we'd have to work with them for those specific signs. And there's regulations that they need that are mandatory. So like the signs have to be green and a certain font size and some of those things. So what we'll end up trying to do is trying to consolidate some of our signs that we have now. And again, just improving those primarily. I think long term, as we work on some of these projects, like we talked about these freeway interchanges, those are opportunities where maybe we can work with them since we're already working on a bigger project. Say, hey, look, what if we added this to the sign, or instead of having 3 signs, why don't we put them all on one, and try to work it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question on life cycle of the sign. Not knowing what type of material these signs are being constructed with, do we have a proposed lifespan of the signs? Are they going to need to be renovated, maintained, painted?
The idea, and that's part of what the process we're going through now, is the group we're working with to help us come up with the drawings are actually going to make recommendations on types of materials that we can use for these signs. One of the things that they are bringing, that we've specifically asked for them to look at, is the length or the life cycle of the sign. So that's going to be one of the considerations we make before we finalize the material. Unfortunately, like most things, the longer the lifestyle, potentially the more costly it may be. Sure. So there's always that balance, but it's definitely something that we're going to keep in mind, and hopefully we can get a pretty good lifestyle. I know I'm not a public works guy, so I don't know, but I figure you get a couple years out of it before they start turning. And obviously colors has a big difference, or has an impact in what they do, and that's actually why some of the colors on the signs are kind of more of a muted, because they'll last a little bit longer, hopefully.
Okay. And then looking at phase 2, you've referenced this being the first phase. Has there been discussion, or what are the discussions for the subsequent phases?
A lot of it's going to be depending on future funding that is made available, and also other projects that are ongoing. The great thing is that our Public Works Department, our Planning Department have been involved since the beginning. So as new projects come online that they're working on, they're already thinking, hey, didn't you say we needed a new sign here anyways? Let's incorporate that into the project.
So is it development of the districts, or is it expansion? I mean, the map here is pretty contained within what we would consider Lancaster, and as Lancaster grows both east and west, there's a number of new shopping developments going in, around 60th, and then out to the east there on 30th East, there's new development coming.
Yeah.
What is phase 2 going to incorporate those areas, or
somewhat?
Has there been a discussion of that yet?
Yeah, absolutely. In the master plan of locations, we literally sat down and mapped out the whole city. So if we had unlimited funding, we have places for signs all across the city. Unfortunately, like I said, it's going to really depend on the funding, and then just kind of the key corridors. For example, the Avenue L off the freeways, since we know that literally tens of thousands of people come on a yearly basis to the soccer field, we're going to make sure to extend those signs all the way to the soccer field. And even the other thing is that I don't know if you guys know the next couple of days, West Coast Baptist College is actually having a huge youth conference, and there's 5,000 I call them kids, I don't know, youth are actually visiting from all over to attend this conference. So since the signage is already going that way, it made sense to incorporate West Coast Baptist College on those signs too as you get closer to 30th and the freeway. So those key corridors were definitely going to be part of an earlier phase. Some of the other parts of town, of areas that aren't developed, maybe again a phase 4, 5, or 6. Again, just depending on funding. One of the other things we're making sure that we're looking at now too is that hopefully these things don't change. But one of the options that we're looking at is potentially making sure that it's easy to replace just the cover part of it. So if for some reason the name changes, not that Lancaster City Park's going anywhere, but if we rename it or something like that, it'll be easy to just change that panel as opposed to having to wait and reconstruct the full sign.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Moving on to our last presentation on bus stop furniture, Mario Enriquez and Michelle Cantrell from our City Engineering Division.
Good evening. One would think that the matter before you on this item is very cut and dry. But if you think of husbands and wife deciding what to do with their decoration, the second most controversial question is, the first is, of course, do I look good in this dress? Yeah. The second one is what color? And the current color standard that we have for our bus stops in the city is right there. It's called sky blue. And since it was implemented, there have been comments about it. And, I don't know what the husband did, but in any case, there have been continuing comments, and the occasion of the Antelope Valley Transit Authority's project coming on, where they are adding, through the city staff's planning initiative, they're adding shelters and benches and trash cans at existing bus stop locations, which in number would probably be about an addition of 10% to our current inventory. The issue got to a head, and it was decided that this might be a good opportunity to establish a new color standard. And after much deliberation, considering harmony, blending, that sort of thing, staff boiled down their choices to about 3 color options: white aluminum, traffic gray, and black gray. And the swatches are, I think, yeah. Those swatches are the actual substrates. These are the kind of sheet metal that they go on. It's a perforated sheet metal and steel pipes in powder coat finish. A majority of staff was partial to the traffic gray, and we are coming to you for your opinion, so that whichever husband or wife gets credit for the choice here can lean on you for support in the future.
I don't have a color question, so to speak, but how do they compare to each other in terms of heat retention? Just as it gets real hot in the summertime, comfort or...
Yes, we don't have hard data in regard to that, but the approach about heat is to make sure these are perforated sheet metal, so there's some kind of ventilation. Although in the summer the ventilation is also hot, but at least there's some circulation. But between these colors, I think traffic gray and black gray would be kind of close. The white aluminum would probably reflect more radiant heat, but then that radiant heat is reflected on everything else around it. Yeah. So those are the pros and cons.
Yeah. Have any of the people that have expressed an opinion, are they actual bus riders, people that utilize the transit system, that are sitting on these and having to find them from far away and that type of thing? Or locate them at a distance? Or, do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I know. Except that there is also an observation that bus riders know where the bus stops are. They know what time the bus comes. So in terms of attraction and being easy to find, it's probably just for newcomers and tourists. And
of which we have 200,000, evidently.
Yeah, but there is also this argument that we probably want tourists to come to real destinations, not bus stops.
Fair enough. I think that the traffic gray is beautiful, as is the white aluminum, but I would get some better information about how hot these things do get before changing all the colors and installing them.
I really like the blue. I mean, when they put them up, you can spot it, you can see it, and I thought it, it kind of, we're a sunny place, and I thought it just kind of matched for the most part. And like when you're driving, I don't know who didn't like the blue, but
I complain about everything, and I don't even complain about base.
Mario, has there been information on longevity of the paints? Repair,
Coat is noted.
maintenance?
Yeah, powder, well, you probably know better than I do, but powder coat is noted for its longevity, its durability, and its resistance to scratching, scuffing, that sort of thing.
So for the benches that are going to be repainted,
The existing ones.
Correct.
You're referring to the existing ones. That's what we're working on now. It appears that to powder coat, you'll have to, it's
for powder
going
coat,
to be a
it'd have to be dismantled and then,
process.
and then baked, right?
You have to pre-treat it, you have to strip it and apply the powder coat and then bake it. So that means you have to take it to somebody's shop. But there is a bright light right here in town. Just this afternoon, I learned from the guys who makes this that there is a contractor here who does electrostatic painting, and he can do it on site with no issues to the environment. So that's a good break, because that will mean we can retrocolor a lot more faster.
Yeah. And if we're going to be painting over the blue, one concern is
it will just need some kind of pre-treatment, and then we'll apply that electrostatic paint.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Well, I'm kind of curious as to how many existing bus stop locations are we talking about that would need to be repainted, and how long ago were they installed or painted originally? How old are the pictures? The illustrations look pretty good, but
yeah. At last count, which was in 2009, we had 240 trash cans, 140 benches, and 35 shelters. Not all bus stop locations have them. There are certain criteria the city follows when to provide a can, a bench, and a shelter, mostly based on ridership. And then there are other conditions such as the immediate surroundings and the availability of the right-of-way. We cannot put these on dirt. And then when we start building a platform for it, then we have to provide a walk to it. So we are unable to install them at all bus stop locations.
and the goal would be to repaint all of the existing, or just in particular areas, or?
All of the existing
All
would
of
be
the
the
existing.
ultimate goal, yes, and make them consistent.
Are you guys 100% set on changing the color?
I believe so.
Yeah? Okay. My
I think
vote is for
We'd
gray.
like to relieve that husband.
Traffic gray, sorry. Traffic gray.
It seems biased, right? No, but
Well-
the staff I referred to was not traffic engineering staff.
The white aluminum looks like it would reflect a lot of heat, and the black, I would be afraid to sit on that in the middle of the summer. Even though it might be just fine, I would just be a
Because
little...
of the perforations.
Yeah, I would be a little hesitant.
Yes.
The traffic gray would be my pick. But
So it looks like there's consensus. The women said so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think my opinion is yes. If we're moving forward with changing the color, then traffic gray.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. All right, this moves us to the public business from the floor for non-agendized items. I want to thank the presenters for staying late, or maybe coming in late and staying with us this evening. But nonetheless, thank you for putting together the information and for your work during the day to keep our city growing. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the commission on any subject regarding city business. Under state legislation, no action can be taken on non-agenda items. Members of the public should be aware of this when addressing the commission regarding items not specifically referenced on the agenda. Please complete a speaker card for the recording secretary. Individuals are limited to 3 minutes each.
We have no speaker cards.
Okay.
Move to adjourned.
Second.
Okay. We don't need to vote on that, right? Okay. Meeting adjourned. This meeting is adjourned to Thursday, May 2nd, 2013 at 5 p.m. in Lancaster City Hall Council Chambers.